So your delegation is called upon. I think we have VCH coming first. And then next we have Miklat Recovery Society. Or
has anyone heard from Director Elliott or Director Alpha?
I don't see Director Elliott. Our Director Olfolia is coming virtually, but I don't see her yet. And we are at the right time, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Powell River Regional Hospital District to order and recognize that our meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin people who have lived in this area for tens of thousands of years. I'd like to approve the agenda as the first order of business. Anybody like to motion? Director Gisborne, seconded by Director Brandon. Any discussion on the agenda? Any hands? All those in favor of accepting the agenda as circulated? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Next item would be the Regional Hospital Board meeting minute of April 26, 2023. Everybody had a chance to look at them, I hope.
So moved.
Good morning. Seconded by Director Brander. Any discussion on the April 26th minutes? All those in favor of accepting the minutes as circulated? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Now our 15-minute meeting is going to be a busy one today. We've got 2 delegations. We like to try to keep the delegations to 10 minutes each. And I'm going to ask both the delegations to try. I've looked at your presentation. There's a lot of things to say. I'm going to see if you can compress them as much as you can while still providing us with the information. So first, Vancouver Coastal Health, talking about annual capital planning. I'd like to introduce your delegation and let us know what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I'm Darlene MacKinnon. I'm the Vice President for Vancouver Coastal Health for Coastal Community of Care. And I'll just let my other, I guess I'll start with Michelle, who's in the room with me.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Michelle Hanna. I'm the Director of Operations for the Cut region with Vancouver Coastal Health, based locally here in the region.
And would our 3 delegates online please introduce yourself? We'll start with Christine.
Hey folks, my name is Christina. I'm the Public Affairs Coordinator at VCH and glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Nicole.
Hi, my name is Nicole Adams. I'm the Communications Leader supporting Coastal Community of Care for Vancouver Coastal Health.
And Johan.
Good afternoon, Johan Marais, Regional Director, Capital Planning, VCH PHC. Thank you.
And is Sam with us? There's Sam.
Good afternoon. My name is Samsami. I'm Director of Planning and Projects with Facilities with Vancouver Coastal Health.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge we're gathered on the self-governing treaty territory of Tla'amin Nation and that VCH provides care on the traditional territories of 14 First Nations. This is the first time meeting with your board, and I'm really thankful to be here and to have this opportunity. I'm just going to speak very quickly on some of the operational items, and then we provided you a large package, but Johan's going to zip through a lot of it and not cut because it's a background for you. So we won't be addressing all those. I wanted to just talk to you about a few things. So first, I just wanted to acknowledge that the important work's underway in Vancouver Coastal Health and focusing on delivering safe care, and it's working with you with regards to investing in our infrastructure and our facilities. I want to talk a little bit about Pathet Hospital. We've been making progress on 2 planned renovations to our hospital. One is in the waiting room and the interior of the emergency. And the goal of that is to improve patient experience as well as safety for patients and staff. We're also preparing to launch our withdrawal management services this fall. We're going to be opening 2 acute inpatient detox beds. which will finally staffing, and their opening is in November. They'll be staffed 24/7 by licensed practical nurses, and the nurses are completing specialty training. Our physician model is in place. And in the interim, we're providing inpatient medical detox and transitional outreach to the clients. So those will be opening in November. I just wanted to share that in the community, in regards to mental health and substance use, in July, you'll know that the provincial government announced that the city of Powell River will be getting a foundry to support youth ages 12 to 24 and their families. So we are doing this work in planning with the Powell River Child, Youth and Family Services Society in the fall to support this initiative. From a primary care perspective, we receive funding for primary care network from the province. This is a coordinated initiative between Vancouver Coastal Health, the divisions of family practice, and the Klamath Nation to provide improved access to local care. And we've currently, we're recruiting, but so far we've hired 2 registered nurses, 2 nurse practitioners, and a social worker. So those are in place. And I wanted to talk a little bit about long-term care and home support. We know there are people waiting to receive long-term care, and in long-term care beds are a challenge. What we're doing to ensure timely access is we've implemented a dedicated role, a nurse, helping to focus on admissions into long-term care from the hospital and the community. We've also hired a mental health rehab worker at Willington Creek to support the residents who need extra support with regards to dementia and cognitive decline. And I'll end my speech, my report out to talk about recruitment. On a positive note, we are seeing improvements in hiring. We're seeing more applicants for our positions. And we have been focused on expanding educational opportunities for locals to advance their careers, partnering with Vancouver Island University, and some of the programs are offering. So I'm gonna pause there in the interest of time and hand over to Johan.
Thank you, Darlene. So let me just screen share here. Are you able to see the presentation?
No, we can see many things, but not the presentation.
Then we're gonna try again. Sorry for that.
There's a lot of windows open there. Yeah.
Can you see it now?
No.
I am so sorry. Let me just close all of these things. My sincere apology. I'm wasting my own time here. Are we good now?
Well, it says you're sharing, but we only see a black screen.
Johan, I can pull up the presentation if you just like to.
Thank you.
You've got
Can
it.
you see it now?
Yes.
Thank you. It's the confusion. It's switching my screens. That's why. So my sincere apology for that. There's a lot of content in this presentation. So I am just. Excuse me, sir.
You can see it now.
Can see it. Perfect. Thank you. So there's a lot of information here, and I'm going to be just skipping through some of the slides for the sake of the time limitation that we have. So I am going to move us over to slide 4, which is the capital planning environment. As you can see, quite complex, and I'll start with the capital plan being right in the center of it all, which is really a lot of rules around our capital policy, funding restrictions, our operating plan, the impact on the operating plan of what we do on the capital side, and then there's audit. as well. As far as the stakeholders, we rely heavily and partner with our funding partners, which includes yourselves, regional hospital districts, auxiliaries, and many other. The public, government, our physicians, staff, and management, and then the UBC, the VCH and Providence boards that govern overall. We are impacted by changes in care requirements, which sometimes necessitate a capital project where we have to do a renovation. Our facility condition index overall, the aging infrastructure that we deal with both on the facilities and equipment and IMITS side, to be operational sustainability, our facilities management, maintenance, which is a key component of the pressure that we see on the capital plan, the changes in technology, e-health initiatives, etc., planetary health, the replacement of our assets, and this is where we are looking at new builds, the mandate letter as directed by the Ministry of Health, our own strategic plan. I've spoken to our aging infrastructure, Indigenous health, diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of this have an impact on how we develop and move forward with priorities within the capital plan. Going over to the next slide, slide 5, the principles that govern our capital planning process. Operational sustainability to ensure our assets are maintained in a good state to actually deliver positive patient outcomes. The asset condition is around the renewal and strategies to improve our facility condition index and address the historical deficit that we have within our infrastructure. Indigenous health refers to the engagement with and incorporation of the unique host nations' cultures on which our facilities are located to create a safe, sustainable spaces that support Indigenous healing practices and prioritize holistic health outcomes. As for planetary health, to ensure that our facilities are sustainable and climate resilient where we can, support the delivery of sustainable future-focused service such as reusables and virtual health. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is very key, ensuring facilities support gender equity and diversity, particularly through the design of washrooms, change rooms, and showers. And then I'm going to move us over to slide 7 for an overview of the facilities within VCH and Providence Healthcare. So we have 11 hospitals, various mental health and substance use facilities, and several long-term and complex care and primary care and community support services. The developing deferred maintenance strategies, which is currently underway, that we continuously work on to really address some of it on a larger scale, such as our elevators, piping, and roof replacements. The major projects which we will be seeking approval for within the next 2 years will be Hilltop House, the long-term care expansion, Evergreen at North Shore, which is tied into another facility, Cathet Evergreen long-term care and expansion, Bamfield, which is in Vancouver, and the downtown east side, we have a health community center that is under construction at the moment, and this is just a lease that we are engaging with. The other emerging initiatives is the Sechelt mental health and substance use, Helsinki Hospital and long-term care replacement strategy. We are actually in a business plan mode at the moment on that project. And then as far as master site plans go, currently underway is the Sea to Sky master site plan. We will also be undertaking a master site planning initiative for Seashot and Lionsgate Hospital. And then there's a continued focus on rural housing initiatives. And then I'm going to skip over slide 8 and move us to slide 9 for an overview on the equipment. Our average spend is approximately 42 million per annum. Very key is the contribution that we are getting from hospital foundations and auxiliaries. As you can see, quite a growth, and this is the graph towards the right-hand bottom. Onto slide 10, just an overview of IMITS. What you see in the graph, the light blue to the top, represents our investment in CST. Powell River is not, Cathet Hospital is not on CST at the moment. They're still on the Meditech system. So we have been investing quite a bit in the infrastructure to actually get us ready for CST. And this is the core infrastructure such as data drops, core switches, edge switches, communications rooms, etc. Then I'm going to skip quite a bit here onto slide 16. And this is just specific now to the active projects that we have underway at Cathet General Hospital. And then we're quickly going to take a look at the new capital projects for Coastal as a COC. So just an important point of qualification here, that it is only projects that are currently active. So projects that have closed earlier in the year is not reflected on this sheet. So I will quickly run through them here. Some of the key ones is the upgrade at the pharmacy, the roof replacement, the fluoroscopy combo replacement, which was a $1.8 million project in total. We have had upgrades to Wellington Creek's cooling system, and that was actually funded through federal fund allocation. Similarly for Evergreen, we did cooling upgrades. That was also a contribution from the federal funds. When we were running short, we were putting in some additional funds here, the 104, because we really wanted to deliver the ultimate solution in terms of that cooling upgrade. We had some doors that was relocated for the detox bed that was funded by minor capital. And then the high voltage breaker replacement, OR mechanical room boiler, modernized the clean dirty dumb waiter, which that is on our agenda here as well further down as we're looking at cost shares opportunities. The level door access was also one that was funded by minor capital. And then lastly, we have an investment with regards to violence prevention. And this is also at Cathet. There were 6 sites identified across the province for that initiative. We've separated the regional hospital district contribution towards these projects to give you an idea as to how much of the total investment you are supporting that has been made into the healthcare services in Powell River. This is a very brief outline of our equipment projects underway at the moment. There is a foundation-funded neonatal monitor. And then we have a number of smaller projects that are being supported through the minor capital allocation to the Coastal COC. This is, this is a representation of the projects that was approved for the coastal COC from the annual routine capital investment allocation. So this is 10.6 million that was allocated from the overall fund that was provided to VCH. And then I'm going to, excuse me, jump into the cost share requests. So we have previously made a request for the modernization of the clean and dirty dumb waiters, to which you provided us a cost share of 88,000 due to the construction market at the moment. We are unable to deliver that project within the allocation that we have. So we are requesting from you an additional $16,000 towards that project over and above the 88, so that we can actually then go to market with that. Similarly, for the pharmacy project, this has been in the making for quite some time, to be honest. And at the time when we presented this project to you for the cost share, it was a $1.5 million project, and that's some time ago. So subsequently, there has been many options that has been looked at. The cost has escalated substantially. We have approached the ministry for additional funds that brought us up to the $3,003,000, and there was a definite decision made not to approach you as the board for the regional hospital district for additional contribution towards that. But excuse me, we are using this opportunity to come forward to you for this additional cost that we are facing. And then the third one is an upgrade to the emergency department triage area, and Darlene just alluded to that. We are estimating that at around 1.9 million and making a cost share to you for 760,000 against that project. And then on the major clinical equipment side, we have prioritized the patient monitoring system to be replaced, and that is at a price tag of $701,000 with a cost share of 280. And the surgical MIS video system within the ORs priced at 215, and we ask for a cost share on that at 86,000 with a total cost share of roughly 1.5 million for your consideration.
Just like to interrupt you for a second here, Johan.
Please, please.
Okay. Just gone over double the time allotted for the delegation, and I want to check with the directors if they are okay with extending the time, because I think there are many questions that the directors and staff might like to ask.
I'm happy to hear more.
Is everybody okay with extending the time for the delegation? And we are eating into the regional district board meeting time as well. So we'll go ahead. So, sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
Not a problem, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a section that really need a little bit more work on our side to bring forward the priorities that we will be looking at in the next year or more. So bear with us. I think we definitely need to do a little bit more here in terms of coming back to you with more in terms of what we will need. But the two priorities that has been identified right now is the building envelope condition assessment and renewal. There is no price tag to this piece of planned work work at this point. And the laundry facility renewal, similarly, no price identified at this point in time. And then I will very quickly run through the prioritization process for the health authority. So we have essentially kicked off the intake process for next year, which is the FY25 process. What you see here is our FY24 planning timeline, which is very similar with a day or two to the one side or the other side, but we are aiming to have a prioritized list to our senior executive by December, with material being prepared for the capital plan to our board by the end of January. Very quickly, I won't spend much time here, but this is the criteria that we look at for each one of the programs for facilities, major equipment, and IMITS. The aim of this slide is to just provide you with a little bit of an overview as to the areas of input. Where do we get the priorities from? And collectively how we work through the process and then end up with approvals at various levels depending on the project cost estimates. And similarly for equipment, a similar timeline. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you very much. And thank you in advance for consideration on the cost share requests.
Okay, so now we'll go to the period of questions. So what I'm proposing is I'm expecting that probably all the directors might have a question to ask. One of our staff members from the finance department, Linda Greenan, has some questions I think she'd like to ask. So Ms. Greenan, would you like to start with your questions and then we'll go to the directors?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for the presentation. And the first question I had was, I noticed on page 14 of your presentation, it shows that 0.2% of the $915 million of capital is, so $2.1 million of the $915.5 million is funded through regional hospital districts. And yet on page 17, for the Cathett Hospital District, it shows that 27% of the capital projects are funded through the hospital district. Could you explain that a little bit for us?
Yes, I can. So the difference that you are looking at here, Linda, is when you're looking at page 17, this is speaking to the total project cost of the portfolio or the projects, whereas if you are going back to page, it was page 14 that you were at, right?
That's correct.
14, you are just looking at the annual amount, the annual cash flow that is tied in to the regional hospital district. So collectively, the 2.7 that you see on page 17 is the total project cost over time. This, what you see, the 2.2 is just a slice for FY24. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Not really. I was wondering, could you tell us then what the, could you compare the total project cost and then tell us how much is funded through regional hospital districts of all the capital?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information with me here, Linda, as in this presentation, I specifically excluded the information from the other two regional hospital districts. It was just focused on Powell River RHD. What you see on slide 14 is representative of the whole of everybody.
Okay, thank you. I have a follow-up question, if I could, please, Chair.
Go ahead. I'll let you have one more.
Thank you. So the other question I have is that, so I noticed like this page here, page 14, it shows it says it's a 5-year capital plan detail. But it's actually a 5-year cash flow detail.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. It's
okay.
cash flow. Yes. And,
but I think
Linda,
I think that you.
Sorry,
okay.
Linda, if you're looking at FY29, there's a little plus sign to it. This actually runs out until 2032, and that is the completion date for the regional hospital redevelopment project.
And then I think you also mentioned that you were going to, in your presentation, that you were going to have a 5-year plan prepared for us by the end of January.
We'll see.
By the end of January, we will have that ready for the VCH board, not for the regional hospital district boards.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to go around the table here and ask questions. I'll let everybody know that as the chair, I don't think we'll be making a decision on these capital cost requests today. I think it may be useful to invite delegation back. We can spend more time, maybe the whole meeting, and get into the details once everybody's had time to think about it. I'll start with Director Gisborne if you have any questions.
Yes, I do. And thank you for coming. And I echo the statement of the chair. Our committees are more for discussion. Our board is for making the decision and moving forward. In the start of your presentation, you mentioned upgrades and changes to long-term care and home support, but all the items that you mentioned only appear to impact long-term care. So I'm wondering what changes are occurring with the home support system.
I'm going to defer that to Darlene to address for the home support question.
Sure.
Thank you.
So the nature of home care and home support is it's delivered in home and in community. So by that nature, it doesn't often require a lot of capital investment as far as infrastructure, facility, or even equipment is quite often lower cost, and funding streams are a little bit different. So a lot of the investments that we have seen in our home care and home support have really been operational and have really been around our staffing models and kind of improving access, reducing kind of wait times, increasing our capacity to be a little bit more nimble and to be a bit more responsive in starting home supports, changing them, preventing hospital admissions when possible, and ensuring that we can do really swift discharges. So that's why it's probably not a focus of necessarily this presentation, because it doesn't have a large capital component to it as compared to some of the other programs.
Well, thank you. That's why I was confused when it was brought up of, changes to the home support system, because over the last 7 years I was heavily involved with home support. I could speak extensively about it, but I won't. I'm going to see if any other directors have questions. I don't want to hog the time.
Director Elliott.
I wanted to raise something that came up in our meetings, Michelle, and we were talking about planning for all of the capital assets, and that we were on a list for, and I can't remember the name of it, and we would be looking at, say, the things we would need in the future for increasing hospital or long-term care or what have you in our community. And there's a process for that. And we're on a list for that right after somebody else. And I'm thinking financial planning gets impacted once we do that. Could we briefly speak about that?
So it's called the master plan.
I was looking at my notes and
so what Johan mentioned is right now we're just starting the master planning for, in October, we'll start the master planning at Seashell and at Lionsgate. And we will start the master planning for Cathat in January. So a few months out. I have all the communities on the coastal community of care. So we started early. The first phase of master planning was in the Sea to Sky. We started that in about June. And now we're starting the master planning in October for Lionsgate campus and for Seashell campus. And then we'll do Cathat as in the Cathat campus. And so this will look at acute and ambulatory and long-term care. And typically the process takes about 8 months.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And maybe I'll just add before you go to the next question. I think that will be really helpful as a partnership engagement opportunity, but also in directing and understanding what are the future needs around capital.
Director Luifola, do you have any question that you'd like to ask?
No, not at this time.
No, okay. Director McCormick.
There, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I had to unmute. I guess my question is a little bit different for the delegation, and that is to ask if you were aware that last week at UBCM, a motion was passed asking the government to modernize the RHD cost share request under the Hospital Act, including the ability to pay as being a key consideration of cost sharing of healthcare capital projects. And that was approved by UBCM. I know my concern echoes that of others who are really worried about the constant erosion of, we'll say, downloading of stuff onto local government. We haven't paid off the last whack, and now we're being asked to take out another $1.5 million in borrowing. I think I'm really concerned about that. So I guess my question to you, sir, is are you aware of the concern that's out there? And how does that affect your cost share requesting that you're doing?
I am not aware of the motion that was passed at the conference last week, but I am definitely aware of the sentiment from the regional hospital districts in general, who is making the comment, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here, but it is that support for the infrastructure upgrades, I think, where we are very challenged in that aspect. At the same time, we are dealing with limited funding from the Ministry of Health. So we are really reaching out to you as a regional hospital district in joint partnership in trying to move some of these key initiatives forward within an extremely limited funding envelope. So the contributions that you are making is valued, unbelievable in terms of moving things forward. You really enable us to do that. Thank you.
And thank you. Just a quick follow-up, Chair. Thank you. And that is to say that I'm not saying these projects are not worthwhile. I'm just saying that our ability to pay is got to be a factor in our consideration. So to keep that in mind, and thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Director Brander.
I have no questions, Chair. Thank you.
Questions. No, Director Lennox, have you got any questions today?
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, having worked in this the facilities in question and understand in detail some of these concerns, I do understand the need. emergent improvements for privacy, etc. I have two questions. Actually, one statement, CST, where I think we're the last Meditech facility anywhere. And so that promise has been since I worked there a decade ago. And so is this the plan for this year? Do you have a year date on that? That's the first question.
So, I think again, I'm aware you are still on the roadmap, but Darlene may have a little bit more information on the timeline. If you do, Darlene, perhaps. Thanks.
Right. So thank you for the question. So for CATHET, it's the last facility in Coastal, and it's not the last facility in Vancouver Coastal. So the next on the roadmap is Richmond Hospital, and then UBC. And then our CEO, Vivian, has really been pushing and making sure that CATHET is on the roadmap. So we've actually started some of the pre-work to make sure that we're ready. So when it comes, so UBC, both those projects are in the next few months. So our goal is to then quickly go to CATHET, because it'll be our last site for Coastal and one of the last sites for Vancouver Coastal. So we 100%
MS-DOS.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I'm just trying to be brief here. Some of the topics you brought up around patient management systems that we used decades ago in the surgical video asset or surgical video system reminds me of asset management and why we haven't considered these, over the preceding years. I am concerned, as Director McCormick illustrated, about increasing requests, cost sharing requests outside of the normal process. I haven't even been in office for a year, and this is the second time we're considering quite large sums of money. And I guess the last point is our acute care facilities are over capacity with people that need to move into long-term care and aging in the community. So I do see that CATHET Evergreen LTC replacement is on the list, and that's definitely for acute care services much needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Fall, you're up there at the top of the screen.
Thank you, Chair. The other questions have been excellent, and I have nothing further to ask at this point. Thank you for presenting to us.
I've got a couple of questions myself. A question and a comment, I guess. The first is, people in Powell River have been planning for quite some time to set up a hospice building at a hospice location. And they're talking, I know, with Vancouver Coastal Health about co-location on the hospital grounds somewhere and trying to move forward with that. They've been working with you on a memorandum of understanding about how to go forward, and my sense of where that's at right now is that it's at a standstill right now because Vancouver Coastal Health is requiring or wants to do more of a needs study to see if there is a need for a hospice. Have you got any idea where that sits on the plan? Who would be doing the studies and when they would happen?
Sure, yeah. So we, of course, have been working with the Hospice Society for quite a number of years. I think it did take a bit of a pause through COVID. We did meet with them earlier this spring just to kind of restart those conversations, look at the really great work that had been happening in the past. And then we just wanted to revisit it to make sure that the work that had previously been done, is that still the need of today? Is that proposal, is that model of care still reflective of current best practices, current needs in community, and our current just kind of landscape and infrastructure? So that's work that we're undergoing as we speak here.
And I think I'll just add, if it's okay, we're doing the same work in Seashell. They also have a need. So I think there's three things that are important. Number one is there's absolutely a need. Number two is we will partner. And number three is they will be part of our engagement. So we'll work until we start the master plan, but they will also be part of our engagement, because I think it's really critical of understanding where a hospice is located. Right? How big it needs to be, what other services we need to provide, and then where it needs to be located.
So you don't have any particular time frame for doing that?
Looks like it's going to be part of the master plan.
We'll do some work before with them, like we have been with Seashells, but I don't have the time frame for that.
I'm gonna let Director Gisborne ask his question, then I'll make a suggestion after them.
Thank you. I got a list of questions, but I figured I would focus in on something with your capital plan. Diversity for showers and baths. I've been in many of your facilities and almost none of them have the ability to actually adequately bathe someone who is a quadriplegic. My understanding for WorkSafe is you need 2 care workers for someone in that condition, and most of the showers in your facilities can barely handle 1 person. So my understanding was that there was 1 facility in GF Strong where they had a special bath, and that did work. When I was down there about 6 years ago, I was informed that they were planning to rip it out. So I'm just wondering, what is your plan for upgrading these showers and bathing systems? Because quite often it's the room structure, which is a major thing to try and change. And I guess the next question that ties into it is, if we're going to be getting this infrastructure and we're going to be paying for it, you know, much like the bath in GF Strong or therapy pool that we had in here in the 90s, I'm just concerned of, you know, if we're funding these things, will Vancouver Coastal Health commit to staffing it? Or are we going to be in 5-10 years ripping it out and charging the taxpayers again to do that?
So the question is the question around staffing, or is the question around making sure the facilities meet the needs of the patients who? Yeah, and when that infrastructure does go in, is it going to be adequately staffed, or is it going to then be ripped out again in another 10 years? So Johan, do you want to talk anything about the upgrades to the facilities around bathing? Or I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Michelle, and we can talk about staffing for sure.
So it's that's a very touchy-feely subject that you are talking about. The only comment that I can make in that regard is that I think on a go-forward basis, when we're looking at new builds, we ensure that we do it properly. Again, the staffing piece I cannot address, but as for upgrades, that depends if it's being brought forward as a project. We are, for example, right now in Hilltop House, we are looking at upgrading that bathing facility there. So I think it's a question of something being identified as critical for replacement. And as for the staffing, I can ask Darlene to speak to that. Thank you.
So I'll just follow up to say that it hasn't come to my attention around the staffing or the shower. It has at Hilltop for our long-term care in Squamish, and that has gone forward to an upgrade so we can have quadriplegic or larger shower. So that's the first. And as far as the staffing needs to be what the staffing needs to be to support the patient. So if it takes 2 people to shower, it's actually not. It's not even that uncommon in long-term care to often have 2 people to shower, just related to behavior, or it's difficult. It's difficult to bathe people, it's difficult to dress people, it's difficult to. So I assume you mean long-term care, but you might mean acute too. Long-term, acute, all of the above. And I'll just say that in my time, I was actually the one having to doing the showering because you didn't have the staff. Yeah. So, and I would ask and I'd say, hey, like, when do you actually have 2 people on staff to actually shower the patient? And the response I heard was, we don't. But it's looking promising because I'm seeing 6 administrators for this meeting. So I think the staffing issue must be sorted by now, is my assumption. Thank you. That's it for me.
So I'm just to keep things short. Everybody's had an opportunity to ask a question. I'm going to suggest that we're going to be dealing with the capital cost sharing requests at future meetings where we talk about the regional hospital district's budget. And to Director McCormick's question, really the question of the taxpayers' ability to pay comes into a collision with the capital funding requests at our board table, where the board is making decisions on what the funding is going to be. And much as I appreciate the presentation, there's a lot of information in there, and I'd like to invite all of the delegation back to a committee of the whole meeting where the board can go through this after having put some thought to it and discuss it more directly. So I'll provide that invitation, and also a request that we be involved in as early as possible in the master planning. So the community has some window into the plans for the healthcare in the region in the future, rather than just
the question.
A few minutes. Be involved. But thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Really interesting, and I'm gonna read it a couple more times again between now and our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I hear they're stepping issues are being sorted.
Well, moving right along to our second delegation today. That is the Together We Can Drug and Alcohol Recovery and Education Society.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Aikenhead. I'm the chair of Together We Can, a not-for-profit society that's been operating residential recovery treatment facilities for 30 years. And thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. With you in person is Sean Slusarchuk, who is the Miklat co-founder. On the Zoom call is Rob Fitzpatrick, also from Miklat. He's the director of operations. And also the Stacy Wilson, the executive director of Together We Can, and Mark Dubé, the manager of Together We Can. We're here today to advance a common interest that I believe we hold, which is to support and expand recovery services for the people of Powell River and surrounding areas. We provided the hospital board with a written proposal, which board members, I believe, received last week, and it gives the background to our requests and specifies some alternate solutions to advance our common interests. I'm not going to go through all of that in the interest of time. We've taken this step because over the past few years, the Miklat Recovery Society of Powell River has been doing excellent work helping local residents recover from problems of addiction, but has sought the assistance of Together We Can on an informal basis to improve their programs. More recently, Miklat has been working hard to fundraise and renovate the old fire hall on Arbutus in Powell River, which is owned by you at the hospital board and leased to Miklat for $1 a year. It's become apparent to Miklat that it would be difficult for Miklat to provide the necessary fundraising and the governance structure to expand the recovery services in Powell River. They currently, as you are aware, have the McGuffey House, which has 12 residential beds, and another second stage recovery house, which has 10 beds. This past Monday, 2 days ago, the general membership of Miklat unanimously agreed to a request that Together We Can take over the recovery services that Miklat has been operating and to work to expand those services in Powell River, and particularly with respect to more beds, hopefully at Arbutus. We're gratefully, which we'll call Miklat Arbutus, of course, we're gratified and humbled by the local community support of Together We Can becoming involved in Powell River. We have identified a donor who's mentioned in our proposal with a potential grant of $600,000 and several other potential substantial donors towards a new facility for Powell River. That potential grant has become a real grant in the sense that the board of directors of the Ronald S. Roadberg Foundation have approved that grant, and we're just working out some of the terms and conditions now. You may have heard of the Roadberg Foundation with the announcement of Road to Recovery. The Diamond Foundation donated $20 million for Road to Recovery treatment in the Vancouver area. And what wasn't publicized quite as much is that the Roadberg Foundation donated $9 million to that for a total, with another person totaling $10 million for a total of $30 million towards road to recovery. So we are hoping that the renovations to the old fire hall in Arbutus can be completed for $925,000. We've received a recent estimate that it may take $1.3 million to complete the renovations, but we're seeking other estimates, other local contractors, and remain optimistic that the 925 figure is realistic. And we have obviously strong indications from Roadberg and from other foundations that we can raise that sum. The Arbutus building is ideal in many ways for the purpose of recovery facility for 12 new residential beds. It's centrally located, and those beds are certainly needed in the midst of the ongoing addiction crisis in the Powell River area and, of course, all over British Columbia. However, if we cannot make successful arrangements with the hospital board, and the funders to complete the renovations to the Arbutus building, then we're still committed to proceeding with providing the current Miklat recovery service to increase those services in Powell River, and working to find other ways and potentially other locations to expand those recovery services. And if this board or people on this board are aware of other facilities, other buildings that could be more appropriately used for expanding Powell River recovery services, we're very open to having those discussions as well. But we have made 4 alternate proposals to the board for a variety of alternatives to expand the recovery services in Powell River. We simply cannot obtain funding with the 90-day cancellation clause that's in the current lease to Miklat. And Miklat has agreed to transfer that lease to us, but of course we need the hospital board's consent to allow for any transfer of the lease. And paragraph 29 of the lease, which gives the hospital board for no reason or any reason the ability to terminate the lease. And with respect, nobody is going to put in $1 million or so into a building they don't own with the potential of being turfed out in 90 days. As I've indicated, the Miklat Recovery Society has approved the assignment to Together We Can, provided, of course, that the hospital board consents to that assignment. And once we have the decision of the hospital board on our proposal, we'll formalize the consent of the board of Together We Can to your specific decision, whatever that is, and to finalize the agreement. As I indicated, there are people here who have specific knowledge of what Miklat has been doing and what Together We Can would be doing operationally in Powell River. And I'd like to thank you for your time and be open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Directors, Director Elliott, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously it's in the best interest of the community to have these services and expand them. I think I'd be in favor of putting a motion to have staff look at this proposal and get back to us with their thoughts on it post haste. So
we have a seconder for that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. Director Paul, did you get that motion?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just going to write it out, but yes, I'll work on that. Well,
Straightforward. Any other questions or any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion before us? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. So right now the situation is we're going to refer this to staff. I'm going to come back with a report on exactly how these issues could be addressed, and the board will be making a decision on them. So thanks for all the work you're doing. Thank you for coming and bringing this proposal here. It seems quite well organized to me, and we will consider it and get back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask if it wasn't inappropriate as to, I know you people do not necessarily meet every week or every day. And is there potentially a time that we would consider this, because we are under some pressure, both from a variety of places, to move forward with this if we are going to move forward with this.
The board generally meets quarterly, which I guess, irregularly. Our next scheduled meeting right now would be December, but I'm thinking we are adding a number of requirements on for the board to do work, so we can perhaps look at having an October or November meeting. And if there's, thanks for the comments that there could be some time urgency in this, and we'll take that into account.
Well, part of it, just if I can be a bit blunt, is the government has announced that they wish to expand the number of beds. They haven't really done, the provincial government, they haven't really done that yet, although there's a number of things in the works. And we're having discussions with them. We've made applications to them in terms of trying to make that support. And they seem to be the ones in a hurry. We obviously want to get moving, but we are getting some pressure from that side, if you will, that they want to deliver beds. And we're happy to help that mandate, but that's really most of where the pressure is coming from, just so that you're clear.
Okay, so as chair, I think I can call a meeting with permission of one other person in the board, and I will make sure I talk to staff about when they can prepare an appropriate report, but they'll need time to do that. We'll get it done as soon as we possibly can within the boundaries of what we can do.
And we're very happy to work with Mr. Devereaux and the staff, or whoever he wants to, and we had total cooperation thus far, and we're happy to continue with that.
Great. John, did you have something you wanted to say?
I think Ian touched on it, just because we do have our building permits in place and we have people willing to start to come up in October. We can start at any time. So that was addressed, and that is one of the urgencies. It's hard to get trades right now, and we have some potential lineups based on, again, timeline if we lose them. I'm a tradesperson myself, but aside from that, I just really want to say the last time I was in this room was March of 2018. And I want to thank you for all your support. And together we are aligned, and we're all about giving back to the community as they are, which is why we are excited to go under their care, because it will just benefit our clients, our staff who are local, and the community. And we're very excited for all of you. So thank you.
I think everybody recognizes the service you provide or are going to provide as being very important. And we just have to make sure we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's in the appropriate manner. So thanks again for coming, and we will let you know when the meeting is going to be to discuss it further.
Thank you for your time. We very much appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you. And before we go, I have a motion I would like to make connected to the first delegation. Could you put that up on the screen, please?
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion is that the Vancouver Coastal Health Annual Capital Planning 2023-2024 capital project cost share request be referred to strategic planning for the regional hospital district, and that staff be directed to arrange a strategic planning session for the last quarter of 2023.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that, Director Elliott?
I like that we're going to do strategic planning for the hospital board, and I wouldn't mind receiving more information about the master planning process and how we can align our processes and timings with their processes and timings. And I don't know how that happens. It's not really being against or for this motion, only that it's information that should go along with it.
The chair could invite Vancouver Coastal Health to come and do that strategic planning session about both of those items.
Yeah.
Director McCormick, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I did have my hand up. I think your motion is great. I support it. I'd also like to have a little bit of the history too, of where you know, our cost share requests have gone, how much they cost over the life of, you know, the borrowing and such. Because I think that's important information for us to have at a strategic planning section.
Dr. Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely love the motion before us. I think if we get this going to our strategic planning session, we can address a lot of the concerns that I was expressing around, you know, funding capital projects. And then, you know, is there going to be adequate staffing to ensure that those capital projects are properly used? And, you know, not, you know, because otherwise, you know, we saw in their presentation, I think it was like a break fix model is kind of what they're in. And, you know, I've kind of been in and out of these facilities, and quite often they get a piece of infrastructure and they don't have the staffing to properly, you know, utilize it and maintain it. And if we're going to have a strategic planning session, I think it becomes a much more wholesome discussion, so that when we talk about these capital assets, we can figure out, you know, what is the long-term support and the long-term vision of our community to make sure that, you know, because the decisions that we make right now with related to healthcare, they have 10, 20, 30-year implications. So absolutely love this resolution. Thank you, Chair, for putting it forward.
Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. So we have no unfinished business, no correspondence, no business arising from the correspondence. I'm going to forego the chair's report in the interest of time, since we're already 1 hour into our 15-minute meeting. The consent agenda is next.
So moved.
Anybody have anything they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Director Gisborne moves the consent agenda, seconded by Director Brander. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor of the agenda as presented? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Now, resolutions removed. We don't have any. We don't have any resolutions under 11. Don't have any reports under 12. Here we are into bylaws, item 13 on the agenda.
I move that the board give first and second reading to the Regional Hospital District Provisional Budget Bylaw number 132/2023.
Seconded by Director Elliott. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously.
I move that the board give third reading to Regional Hospital District Provisional Budget Bylaw number 132/2023.
Seconded by Director Elliott. Any discussion? Any hands? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously.
I move that the board adopt Regional Hospital District Provisional Budget Bylaw number 132/2023.
Seconder, Director Elliott again. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. No new business. You're down to question period. Mr. Galinsky, are you online and do you have any questions?
I am online, Chair. Thank you very much. My questions have been answered today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, that's a good thing. I think we've done a good job then.
You have.
No in-camera session, no rising report from an in-camera session that we didn't have. We are now adjourned and we can zip right on to regular board meeting agenda after a short break.